Welcome to LoTech Tuesdays by LoTech and Wild, the podcast for people who live their lives unplugged and for those who want to. All right. So nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, same. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, I am really interested in all of the fun stuff that you've been up to and especially now as we're kind of going into the fall, and then going into the deep, dark winter, just kind of like trying to figure out how to, keep motivated to stay healthy and, but why don't we start with a little bit of history about you? I know that you're a social worker and you're also a trainer.
That's right.
I think that those two things go hand in hand really, really well.
Yeah, I'm glad you do. I do as well. I was I was running the Valdez gym when I was finishing up my social work master's degree through UAA and through a distance hybrid program. And it was so I was working at the gym during the day and working with people in personal training, and we would be talking about their difficulties with sticking with a plan and the kind of shame cycle that you can get into when you're know what you want to be doing, but you're not actually doing it. And I was in this counseling program at the same time. So I was like, you know what, this sounds a lot like mental health. People would be crying in their personal training sessions, and it started to feel like the mental health component was really important. And then I would I'd finish my day job and I'd go do my practicum over at the counseling center through Providence there. And I'd be doing counseling sessions with people, but we were also learning that how important exercise is for mental health, and that there's some great research about how getting moving 3 times a week can be really effective for a lot of different types of depression. Not all of them, but for a lot, their exercise is just as effective or more so than medication. So over in the counseling world, I'd be like, you know what, maybe you should come over and join me at the gym. And it was just a very interesting place to be in, these two worlds at once, but seeing the overlap and then the need for them to come together. And so once I got that degree wrapped up and got a couple years of counseling under my belt, now I've been moving more into, I started my own business and have been working to blend the two together, which has been really exciting.
Now, is your own business Ski Babes or?
Yeah, the business is called Mind and Mountain, and
Okay.
Ski Babes is our winter-focused program.
Gotcha. And so Mind and Mountain is a hybrid of your personal training and your mental health practice.
Yeah, yep, it is. And it's kind of with an outdoorsy focus too, because that's so much of what I love to do, and also where I do a lot of this both mental and physical work is out in the mountains. And so, it's mental health, physical health, and outdoor recreation all kind of smushed together.
So let's talk a little bit about what physical activity and outdoor stimulation can replace as far as when we're starting to get down in the doldrums. What does that do to our body chemistry? What's actually happening,
Yeah, well, it's different for different bodies and different people, but for sure, when the days get shorter and the darkness gets longer, there is a chemical process that happens too, where we just tend to want to sleep more. Our biological clock gets a little bit off of a centered place, where if we were living on the equator and we would have these cues from the environment that would also cue our hormone system to get up at a certain time, go to sleep at 12 hours later, at a very balanced rhythm. And those of us who are here in Alaska are living in these extreme versions of that, where we're not getting the cues from the sunlight, which means our body system gets a little bit thrown off too. And for different people, different amounts. But I sure feel like for everyone, at least to some degree, the winter is going to affect your hormone system, your vitamin D levels, and for sure throw off your, like, all of that impacts your motivation and your sort of drive for doing the things that help us then keep our energy flowing. So if we're not getting the cues from the sun, if we're not getting the hormone cues from our body, and then like maybe there's also a social component where if we're like in our houses more just to stay warm, then we're not like out like getting the cues from our community to maybe do stuff too. So all of those things together kind of feed us into a slower, less active, and maybe also more mentally challenging time of year unless we're like really being active in counteracting that.
Gotcha. Yes. Have you ever heard of Huberman Lab?
Yeah, I listened to some podcasts from him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was very surprised too, because I used to be a big fan of Northern Exposure when I was a kid. It was a TV show
I love that show.
A very silly show. And so there was the episode, of course, where all of the people were walking around with like their vitamin D lamps on their head. And what I found fascinating on the Huberman Lab show was that you can just put on your regular light. That will be enough to trigger you into a state of alertness and simulate day. Of course, it won't give you the vitamin D, but it can trigger that daytime awareness. And so I didn't know that. And so there have definitely been some times, as you know, the sun is not coming out as early as it was, that I've been using that, as well as like night shades over my eyes. So for like that little bit of glow or whatever that might be happening at nighttime, to really get that darkness when I want to sleep, then I've been using that to trigger that sleep mode.
Nice.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a huge believer in that too. I have been using a sunrise alarm clock for the last few years, which is like an alarm clock that fades in. Like you set the timer for the alarm, but it's a light and it fades in over like 30 minutes or so. So it is like a gradual rise of the light in your bedroom. And then when the alarm goes off, you've got actual light in your room. And for me, that makes a huge difference in the winter when, like you said, the sun isn't going to come up anytime soon, but we still got to get going. And it does, for sure. I feel that cue in my body where, like, if there's light in the room, I'm way more willing to get myself going.
Yes.
So I love that too.
Another thing too that is interesting is that if you start your day off with an exercise routine, you are more likely to set your biological clock so that you will get up in the morning and you'll be ready for some sort of activity, as opposed to like, you know, forever and ever and ever. My morning routine is I get up and I like sit at the computer or drink my coffee or read the news or something like that. So now I've been like, I should really get some activity in the morning so that my body rhythms start to adapt that, like, oh, it's time to get up and to move around. And so I noticed that you have a YouTube channel. And one of the things that I thought was absolutely wonderful was one of your vlogs from like 3 years ago was cartwheels. And you said that it was your intention for that year to incorporate play into that year. And I thought that was just wonderful. And so even though that was a couple of years ago, I'm wondering how did that go?
Oh, it's ongoing. That is one of my, that's cool to like have that timestamp from a few years back when I was like really focusing on that. But that thread has continued on into current day, and it still feels like a practice that is really important for me, and one that, like, sometimes when I'm feeling like in a good mood and feeling really lighthearted, it comes really naturally to seek out play and to like channel that little like inner child and let her do her cartwheels and like be in that kind of silly mood. But often, especially as like winter creeps in, it feels like it needs to be a little bit more of I have to put a little bit more effort into it. And sometimes it feels a little bit forced at first, but then it's almost like there's like a crunchy outside that I have to kind of shake off and like let go. And like, it makes some sense to me that so much of our lives require like linear and like serious thinking, and like we got to get these projects done, and we do have to pay the bills, and we do have to like take care of like the left brain, like logical, serious things. And so much of that is valued in our society that I think it does make sense that like it would take a little bit of like shedding of that to be able to free the part of you that wants to just play and have fun. But the impacts I feel are really huge. The ability to like be playful and silly and to focus on enjoyment and pleasure versus accomplishment and drive. Like there's so much of that kind of drive and accomplishment thing in our world, and even in our outdoor recreation. I think a lot of times we can approach that from a place of like, gotta accomplish this list of to-dos that I've gotta like, I want to get to do all these different skis this winter, do all these different climbs this summer. And it has the potential to keep us in that like, I need to do this thing to feel good about myself place. And maybe there's some proving and some, and shifting over to really focusing on the enjoyment and the playfulness of it is pretty transformative really in the approach. It might be the same thing. You might be still like out there skiing, but if you're focusing on the joy of it and the playfulness, then it's a hugely different experience.
For sure. Yeah. Have you ever heard of laughter yoga, which I always thought was pretty silly actually, but at the same time, like I can see how, it can be really addicting once you get into that sort of world. And I figure the people that are doing laughter yoga probably really need it for whatever reason. Maybe they spent too many days scowling or something, but yes, what laughter and enjoyment does for us on a deeper level, because I think there's multiple levels of and types of enjoyment, right? So there's like the instant gratification, and then there's like sometimes a different kind of satisfaction that comes with maybe a higher level of enjoyment or playfulness, and that could come through technical ability, or that could come through I don't know, definition really maybe is what it could boil down to. But that's definitely been a meditation of mine lately is, the instant gratification of what is enjoyment, maybe I could drink this bottle of whiskey or something and sit at a park, right, with a bunch of friends or friends, right? Like, who are these people? Or, maybe after like 6 months of really dedicating myself to finding some mental health awareness, or whether maybe it's a trek. Like I know that you and Luke go on these like epic adventures. Like he credits you with doing the Alaska refuge trip, which that's not a day trip, right? How long did that take you? But that's a different kind of satisfaction, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting concept here. The short-term pleasure and the longer
Oh no, where'd you go?
accomplishment and satisfaction related. Yeah, those trips were, we did a series of 3-week trips in the Brooks Range. And that was one of them. Mm-hmm.
And you were dancing?
Yeah, that one we made into a dance. It was really fun. Actually, that was a little creative. And he had the idea of making it like a dance theme, and we stopped at a bunch of different gorgeous places throughout the trip and took little dance breaks.
Love it.
And that was a fun little push from him initially, and I was super uncomfortable like dancing in front of the camera at first, but by the end it was so fun, and it freed up this like playfulness. I love to dance, but I just like prior would just do it by myself and like not necessarily like in like a like on camera setting. But I enjoyed it so much by the end, and then people enjoyed that video so much, and it felt like it brought this like different approach to outdoor recreation again, where we can hone in on the joy and the fun in it. And it stuck with me. I worked that into I work it into all of my workouts. We finished the workouts with a dance move reward, and it just is this like really playful and fun way to end a workout on a high note, and just with like tap back into pure silliness. And there's some neurochemical stuff that happens too when you're following along with someone and mirroring what they're doing. It's one of the things that helps cue our nervous system back to safety when we're in sync with someone else. So there's like some good nervous system things that happens when we do that. And then I'm always looking for ways to help our brains get more positive associations with the exercise that we do. So it's cool how that wrapped around and has stuck with me ever since.
I love it. I taught yoga for probably 20 years or something like that. And so I used to do some of those things. We would do some partner yogas and yoga classes and or acro yoga classes. And so some of our warm-ups would be mimicking other people or doing some almost like a dance tag. You know what I mean? Where I'm going to do this and then you do that and then you do something and then I do that or whatever. And then we would do cartwheels too. We would do cartwheels too. And, it's really amazing how people that have done cartwheels as a child, and then you ask them to do cartwheels 40 years later, and they're like, what is this? What is this strange magic that you're asking me to do? And handstands too. And I had one young lady that just dive bombed into the wall and crumpled like a little string because she forgot to like put her hands onto the ground. And I thought, oh, this is interesting, that we would even have to step by step instruct like how to do these things that probably as children came very, naturally. Right. So yeah, growing down instead of growing up, you need to grow down maybe sometimes. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is interesting, huh? As we go through different seasons of life and have different priorities, and like other things kind of eclipse the things that we used to maybe do without even like thinking about it as children. And for sure it can be it's something that I end up talking with people pretty often about how to find that kind of playful joy in moving your body at different parts of the lifespan. And, for a lot of people, it's maybe working like after pregnancy, after you've had a kid, trying to figure out how to like get your body in like feeling good at the next stage of life. Or lots of people who have had really active lives, but feel like they're aging and they're having to like relearn how to work with this different body. It can be really tough to like mentally, especially because we have these imprints of how easy it used to be back when we were little like kids, and like we could just do a cartwheel without even like a second thought. And so those places kind of stick in our memories, and it's can be quite challenging to like circle back and realize how far you are from that place that you used to be. And I think we are like used to thinking that we just like get better and better and better as we get older, but like we get better at some things, but then some things we tend to like leave to the side and not circle back to. And then when we do it, like actually we've gotten worse at them, which is a hard place to be as an adult.
That crusty thing that you were talking about earlier that you have to like kind of chisel through a little bit. So what are your suggestions for kind of like getting started? If you're feeling unmotivated and you don't want to, do that thing, like, I have a real hard time with that. I have to admit, like after I'm sitting at the computer for so many hours, getting work done or whatnot, and then trying to make that shift into something that I know will make me happy, but I just can't get there. So what are some tricks into that?
Yeah. Okay. I love this question. I have so many thoughts. So a few of the things that get in the way for us as adults are like, one of them is that we're used to doing things that we're really good at. We tend to like, as we get older, focus in on the things that we're good at and let the stuff that like aren't in our skill set drop away. So we can tend then to have a harder time starting back up with other things, because when you start, you're gonna like initially it's going to be really crunchy and uncomfortable, and you're not going to feel like you're very good at it. So there is this time when you start back into something new, or even if it was something you used to be good at but you haven't been doing it for a little while, like, you know, the body will lose its conditioning just in a few weeks or a couple months. So like, and then we have injuries and all these other reasons that we get thrown off of like an exercise routine, for example. So there is an initial phase where it is uncomfortable, and it is like you do feel like you're quote unquote bad at it. And that can be a really challenging thing for those of us who are like, in the rest of our lives, we're the like leaders and the ones who like are good at the things. So I really like to normalize that starting phase, that there like for sure will be some discomfort with it, and lower the expectations way down so that the expectation isn't that you jump right into a 5-day a week, 1 hour in the gym, like going for it consistently. Like there's a lot of magic with consistency, but I find that the way to get consistent is to start super small, have your goals be very achievable, and like let it be as messy as it needs to be for you to feel like you're doing a good enough job to keep going. So I have one of the mantras that I teach people is moving is winning. And to me, that means that like whatever you're doing counts. It's good. You don't have to be like having A+ super amazing workout every time. If you show up and do the warm up and then check in with your body from there, sometimes the warm up is all you could have like capacity for in that day, and that is enough. I like to make commit to the warm up a few times a week, and then let that be like good if you did that. And then if you like often after you do a warm up, you get a little momentum going and your body's like, I could do a little bit more. And then maybe you can build up from there. But so the moving is winning is one of my strategies. Another one is this measure up from zero concept, which is like, if you're looking at your sort of perfect plan, we often look at the 100% perfect, and then we notice how much we did less than that. So we're like measuring down from 100%, but it's way more effective for motivation and sustainability and consistency to instead look at zero and measure up from there and track how much you've been doing that was more than nothing.
Gotcha. I think those are very worthy points and tips and tricks. And so it leads me to ask you, how did you get to be so wise? How did you decide that you were going to do this, and what motivated you to want to help other people, and how did this journey start for you?
Well, what a good question. Thank you for the flattery there. I'm touched. I feel like this has just been, first of all, it's a personal journey. I love this stuff because I try it out on myself, and then I notice what works, and I love to like do little experiments and try different things, and then really listen to my body and notice the impacts of it. So it is a personal exploration first. I have had mental health struggles throughout my life with depression and anxiety, and especially in the winter, I really do feel the seasonal heaviness. I don't know if I have like a diagnosable seasonal affective disorder, but for sure there's like a heaviness to the mood stuff that happens in the winter. So first and foremost, I've been like really investing in a lot of personal work to figure out what is helpful for me. And then like this stuff really works. The exercise, the getting outside, the therapy, like all of this work that I've been first putting on myself on and then getting a bunch of training in has transformed my life completely. And because of that, I'm like very passionate about more people getting access to it, because I know there is a lot of barriers out there with access to mental health resources, physical health resources, and to the outdoors. Those things all have helped me so much that I really want to like break down all those barriers and get the resources and the tools out there to more people because they help us live better lives, and like that, all that is better for the world. So
Yeah.
I don't know, personal project first, and then it's like once it works, you can't help but want to share it.
I like it. You're a human guinea pig for your own theories.
Totally.
I
Yeah.
saw in I think it was Alaska State University or something. You were giving a talk, and the premise was, "Do I look like a social worker?" And what did you mean by that when you said that? You came out, I think, in like jeans and tennis shoes and maybe a sweatshirt or something. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, that means, there is this, I would say there is this concept of people in the mental health world that is like very soft and, just uh, different than the like vibrant and active sort of person that in that talk I was really emphasizing. And what I was really trying to play with the theme of that presentation was that was for the UAA master's program that I did of social work, and we had a few different people telling stories about their experiences. And I think the thing I'm really trying to do with my work in general is to destigmatize the mental health field and like broaden our idea of what it means to have mental health difficulties, and to be a social worker and be someone who works in mental health. There are ways to do. There's ways to be someone who has mental health challenges and to work in that field that is of like super active and fun and playful, and it like, yes, it's heavy work, but to balance out the heaviness, you need the joy and the light side too. So I feel like the playfulness and the outdoor rec and all of these things we've been talking about are like the ways that help sustain our healing and our mental health work over time.
For sure. And I think that like insurance companies have been trying, like yoga instructors and insurance companies have been trying to work together for a long time to try to get yoga to be accepted by insurance companies, because it really does have like a profound effect on people. Not yoga specifically, but physical activity really does have a profound effect on people. And I think that for a long time, mental health care workers have known it. And so now it's like, how do we get like this to be uh, like not only destigmatized, but like accepted medicine, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, people have theorized that there's, uh, this renewable resource, doesn't have as much maybe dollar value as like pharmaceuticals. However, I would argue that the outdoor fitness, outdoor industry, physical fitness industry has plenty of dollar value, and that maybe the people that have been investing in pharmaceuticals just have been investing in the wrong thing. So are you finding this as far as is insurance companies, or I mean, do you have to work in that realm also, like the nasty paperwork business side of all of this?
Some of what I have done in creating my own business rather than working inside of the like traditional counseling model has basically helped me step aside from the harder parts of the medical model, the way we have mental health
Mhm.
sort of blocked in with diagnoses codes and insurance struggles. So I am at this point doing work that's like kind of free of the system, at least for now,
Mhm.
and kind of approaching the mental health work from the physical and like the workout angle, and then the ways I just find workouts to be this like incredibly rich
Yeah.
place of being able to build self-awareness and skills about tuning into what's going on, both in the subtleties of your body
Mhm.
and the interworkings of your mind under challenge. And it's
Yeah.
like, if we're gonna if we're going to do workouts a few times a week, it's really cool to be able to use them also as a healing tool. And instead of just like going in and like pounding out your workout, to be able to use it as a way to build your skill set around what happens to your body in your stress cycle and what happens to your nervous system and how that sets off different things in your body. So I've basically been really just excited about approaching this from a different way. And I agree that there are some big challenges with the way we have pharmaceuticals and medical model wrapped in. And there are some really good places for all of those things. For me, it's been really freeing to be able to step outside of it and find a different way.
Absolutely. So then how do you address affordability? Because I think that part of the reason that we have like an insurance model is affordability, which these days is almost kind of ironic because of the amount of money that people spend on insurance sometimes. But that is why it was started in the first place. Like that was the ideology. So you have a lot of videos, you have a lot of free content, right? It's accessible to anybody. Can you speak to those points a little bit?
Yeah, totally. This is an important thing because equity and accessibility is one of my values. So that is for sure something I think a lot about. So yes, I put a lot of free content out on emails, and I'm focusing a lot on my Instagram these days. So I'm putting a lot of stuff out on there. So there is this sort of free way to access these tools. And then the workouts, a 6-week program is $160. So that's about the same price as one therapy session if you were to pay it full price. So it ends up being, and yes, they're workouts, they're not therapy, but there are these mental health and mindset and somatic tools woven in throughout a 6-week process. So it's like a psycho education practice as well as workouts. So in a way that feels like a lower cost way to access some of the tools that I would be teaching to people in therapy sessions.
Yeah.
And then we also have a program that we started about a year ago that's called Sistering Support. And sistering, I stole that term from construction because when you're building a house, if you have a beam that isn't strong enough to hold up the weight that it needs to, then they will put boards on either side of it to help carry the weight. And that's called sistering. And I just love that concept so much that we use that for our equity pricing. And so if people have extra to donate when they're signing up, they'll throw some money into the fund. And then we give out reduced price options for people who are struggling with financial barriers.
I love it. What a wonderful.
Yeah, it's been working really well.
Yeah. What is your Instagram handle so that people can find you?
It is Sarah M. Histand.
Awesome. And that's your website also. It's sarahmhistand.com.
Yeah, it is for now. So when I first started my business, it was named after me, and I just recently rebranded it to Mind and Mountain. And so we're going to do a rebrand of the website and move it over to a different URL this winter.
Great.
Which is really exciting. But the sarahmhistand.com will always be alive, and it'll reroute you to the new one once it's live.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about some of these adventures that you go on and what how can you manage to take a couple weeks off at a time? And what does that have to do with, all of these projects that you're working on? Is this all culminating in something somewhere down the road that you see? Or, I mean, these are some serious adventures that you're going on. How do you prepare for them even? I know that's a lot of questions all in a row.
Yeah. Well, so we have been, Luke and I have been doing, Luke is my husband. He is the one who brought me over to Anchorage. He was living in Anchorage and I was living in Valdez, and we were dating long distance for a long time. And then eventually got me all the way over here. We have tried to build our life around, the flexibility to be able to be outside when the weather's good and to take some longer chunks of time off. and for a while we were both in like more traditional jobs and just like would save up our time and just like bank it, or maybe take some time, leave without pay if we needed to. And we're fortunate enough to pull that off. Now we're both self-employed, and that comes with a lot of schedule freedom, which is a total blessing. And I feel really lucky to be able to do that. When I was running the gym in Valdez and teaching these classes in person with people, one of the things that would happen was we'd be on like a really cool routine of like meeting at our regularly scheduled time. And then I would leave to go on a trip, and people would just like stop because there was no way to keep going, if I wasn't showing up to lead the classes.
Yeah.
And that was part of what like clicked into this online fitness model and making videos of the workouts so that people could keep going without me needing to be right there.
Yeah.
So it both helped people stay more consistent without needing me to physically be there with them, and it helped me step away and go on the trips when it was time to go on the trips and keep the business running. Wonderful. So that's been like a magical thing that has come together. Yeah, and I train, I get ready for the trips with these workouts, the bodyweight fitness training that I'm doing in the winter under the Ski Babes program, and in the summer with the Summer Strong program. So that's like the cross training that helps build up the stability in the body to be able to jump into whatever challenges we run into on those trips. Yeah. And then we also do some sort of baby steps up. So we'll start with like a few smaller hikes and then, a couple overnights, and we try to like build up in advance of the trips. But then also over the course of a long trip, you get into really good shape eventually. So we'll often set like a little bit smaller goals for the first few days and expect the bodies to be like a little bit creaky, a little bit like getting used to it at the beginning and not wanting to push too hard at the beginning. And then by the end, we'll be in like really good, like dialed in with all our systems and able to make up some mileage later in the trip.
Great. Gotcha. And so do you guys incorporate like leave no trace principles, or, have you taken any like formal NOLS training classes or anything like that, or wilderness first aid?
We both have taken WFRS, so the Wilderness First Responder classes. Mm-hmm. So that's the medical support. I worked for the Park Service for a long time, so I have the Park Service approach to small impact on the world and kind of leave no trace philosophies. We for sure are trying to leave as little impact as we can as we move through, and because we're typically doing traverses where we just like sleep in one spot and then move on. It tends to be a pretty light footprint on the land.
Nice. And so how do you think that some of adventuring helps with mental health?
Gosh, on these long trips, I notice a really profound shift in my brain that I feel like is very, very helpful for mental health. There is, and now that I'm specifically studying some nervous system work these days through a program that's called somatic experiencing, I'm able to like understand what's going on, but there are a lot of nervous system cues for safety that happen when we're outside, and we're just doing them because like that's what it takes to be outside. One of them is using peripheral vision. So when you're in a like fight or flight situation, like a survival mode in your nervous system, our brains and our vision tunnels down into like focusing on the problem, the thing that's a threat. And often in modern day, we're getting those triggers all the time. So we're often in a tunnel vision, like even just right here talking to you on the computer, we're very focused in on the one thing. Yeah. And that is a little bit of a cue, a subtle cue to the nervous system that we need to be a little bit stressed about this. And so anytime we open up our vision and like use our peripheral vision and see what's outside that tunnel, it's a cue to the system that we are safe. And so, when we're outside traveling through, especially I notice this really big when we're traveling somewhere where there's not trails and we're just really out on the land and having to clue into all the subtle signs of what's that noise? Is it too cold? Should I put a layer on? Like tracking all of these body sensations and tracking visually what's going on around us. All of that helps our animal body like really feel safe. And that happens on a short hike and a short time outside, but it happens on a very deep level after like multiple days of it. So I'm like really excited about tying in all of the different ways that outdoor rec supports that nervous system safety. It feels like there's a lot there.
What if you see like a bear in your peripheral?
Yeah. So, if you're scanning, like that's what we're doing with our periphery is like we're scanning to see if there's danger. Most of the time there's not. And so we're like, this is great. But yeah, then if we see something, then our attention goes like into that like tunnel vision to focus on the bear. And then, again, when we're outside, we often have a way to tackle that situation, right? Like as long as the bear isn't like in attack mode, which like very rarely they are, like knock on wood for that. But like typically, like we look at the threat and then we evaluate it. So we're like using all our senses to figure out how far is it? Does it have its hackles up? Has it seen us yet? What are we going to do about this threat?
Yeah.
Are we going to make noise? Are we going to like move away? What do we need to do? We're coming up with like a plan and just being able to take some action to respond to the threat is another one of the things that our body really needs. Our nervous system needs that.
Yeah.
So when we're so even with a bear, which is like an external threat that we don't have a lot of control over, there's a lot of stuff that we can do about the situation, whether it's making noise, whether it's grabbing rocks, whether it's making yourself super big, or whether it's just like walking away the other, like getting space. Those are all actions that help us resolve the threat. And then like eventually we get out of that threat and we're like, oh my gosh, like that was intense, and then we like maybe laugh about it with our friends and maybe like shake it off because like we got a little bit of an adrenaline rush and we have to like flush the adrenaline out of our body. So like all the shaking and even the walking helps move some of that out of our body.
Yeah.
It's the trapped, like there's nothing I can do about this stressor that is really hard on our nervous system and mental health. And a lot of that, a lot of our modern world is that we're like reading about these threats online or like interacting with people and we can't fix it. And like all of these threats are coming at us and we can't actually take an action to resolve it. So like all of those outdoor ones, I'm like, yes, put me in those situations. I can like do something about those.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think you're right. And it also it's amazing how many thoughts we can process to come to some sort of a conclusion when you're actually like in the moment there. Your mind, as you focus in on that one situation that you're actually in, how you can process so many thoughts just in that one moment. But I think that you're right. I think that in this modern day, since so many people are in their homes and we are being bombarded just mentally and theoretically with all of these threats that we find ourselves helpless. And we're not like Katie Byron has this whole thing, right, where she's asking the question, is this true? Right. So, I mean, it comes back in my way of interpreting that is being present, being really present in where you are right now. Maybe you have some worry about something. But is that where you are right now? I can't control that external thing, right? That I'm theorizing, but I can control the fact that maybe I'm trapped in this house, or I'm being stressed about whatever at work, or maybe I can go for a walk in that case. I can go outside in that case,
Yes.
So there are like simple solutions if I can just get myself out of that theoretical threat and put myself in the present moment, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's like when you can start to recognize that those external threats or theoretical threats that we're hearing about are in our bodies, they are reading as threats, just like that bear, essentially. They're like our body is reacting to that. And And this is some of the skill of building up the self-awareness of what happens to your body when it's reading a threat and starting up into a stress cycle. Then we might not be able to like resolve the threat that we read about on the news, but we can respond to our body's stress cycle and take some actions to like help it again, like feel like it was able to do something active about that situation. Even if it didn't have like a direct impact on the thing, getting your body moving is one of the ways, to help like complete that stress cycle, even if it didn't resolve the threat.
Right. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And just as a side note, is it Byron Katie or Katie Byron? I think that
I don't know, but one of those. She's got those two names, and one of them goes first, but who knows?
I always do that. Katie just seems like it should be the first name. But I think it's maybe Byron Katie. Oh, shame on me.
Right. Yeah, it's all good. Sure, she gets that all the time.
Yeah. Poor thing. I didn't realize too, but I think her son or something is a famous musician in like a hair metal band or something like that. I was like, no wonder she went into mental health. Yep. That explains it. Well, I just want to thank you so much for joining me today and having this wonderful conversation. I really appreciate everything that you are doing really for the community and making it affordable, making it accessible, and guiding communities of people into living their best life.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this was a great talk. It's nice to chat with you.
Thanks again for listening to LoTech Tuesdays by LoTech and Wild. This podcast supports Valdez Adventure Alliance up in Valdez, Alaska, where they strongly believe in nature therapy. Their goal is to bring this to those who will appreciate it, one might say those who need it. Their focus is teaching through play. They are strong encouragers. The events and resources that they provide will help people find the satisfaction of self-accomplishment through effort, of climbing, of riding bikes, of hiking, of trail building, of immersing in nature. They encourage people to allow themselves to surrender to the flow of the vast beauty of those mountains and the Prince William Sound. Their objective is to be a resource for people to find deep happiness and healthy outlets for themselves in these ever-trying times. We would like to shout out to some of the Valdez Adventure sponsors, including IMBA, International Mountain Biking Association, Access Fund, Protecting America's Climbing, and the American Alpine Club. Some local sponsors include the City of Valdez, the CVEA Community Foundation, Alyeska Pipeline, the Fat Mermaid, the Prospector, Valdez Avalanche Center, Raven, Alaska. We'd also like to give a big shout out to Loa Boots, Tiger Tail, Hyperlight, the National Scenic Byway Foundation, Mountain Equipment, RAB, and Nick Wax. Thanks again for listening and enjoy your day.